As tensions continue to simmer between Israel and the United States, U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin hosted his Israeli counterpart Yoav Gallant in Washington. The two top officials presented a sense of business as usual during the 90-minute meeting, which comes as ties between President Joe Biden and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu descend to their lowest point in years. Secretary Austin told Gallant that civilian casualties in Gaza are too high.
Our goal is to make Israel and the region safer and more secure. And as I have consistently said, protecting Palestinian civilians from harm is both a moral necessity and a strategic imperative. In Gaza today, the number of civilian casualties is far too high, and the amount of humanitarian aid is far too low. Gaza is suffering a humanitarian catastrophe, and the situation is getting even worse. And we need immediate increases in assistance to avert famine, and our work to open a temporary humanitarian corridor by sea will help, but the key is still expanding aid deliveries by land. So, Mr. Minister, I look forward to discussing how we can dramatically and urgently ease the humanitarian crisis in Gaza.
Now, Secretary Austin also suggested alternatives to a major Israeli offensive planned in Rafah. Washington now has pressed Israel to ensure that any military operation in Rafah unfolds in phases to protect civilians and secure the delivery of aid. The defense secretary said that it was imperative to protect Palestinian civilians in the war.
The safety of the 1.5 million Palestinian civilians in Rafah is also a top priority for the United States. Now, we continue to share the goal of seeing Hamas defeated. So we'll discuss alternative approaches to target Hamas elements, and we must also plan for Israel's security after this conflict ends. And that includes working in renewed cooperation with the Palestinian Authority and our regional partners to stabilize Gaza and to move toward a two-state solution.
Now, U.S. Secretary of Defense Austin said that the United States will continue to stand up for Israel's right to defend itself in accordance with the law of armed conflict and humanitarian law. He also said that the security bond between Israel and the United States was unshakable.
Now, it's been nearly 6 months since the Hamas atrocities of October 7th, the worst day in Israel's history. No country should endure such terror, and no country would tolerate such danger. So President Biden has been clear. Israel has a right to defend itself like any other state. So we're working with Israel to ensure that an outrage like October 7th can never happen again. And the United States will not rest until all the hostages are home. Our security bond is unshakable. The United States is Israel's closest friend, and that won't change. And so I look forward to a good discussion today. And again, thanks for being here, Mr. Minister.
Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant said he discussed important cooperation between Israeli and U.S. defense establishments to ensure Israel's qualitative military edge in the region. He also emphasized the ongoing threats to Israel.
Over the past 6 months, we have been fighting a war against a brutal terror organization, Hamas, which is the ISIS of Gaza. We also face attacks from 7 different fronts, all led by Iran. While I sit here in the Pentagon, Hamas leader Haniya is meeting with Iranian leadership. The picture is clear. Who is where? The destruction of Hamas organization and bringing back the Israeli hostages back home. The negotiation on the hostages issue and Hamas positions require us to join hands in our military and diplomatic efforts and to increase pressure on Hamas.
The Israeli defense minister also met with U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan and CIA Director William Burns, who recently returned from talks in Doha. And on Monday, he also met with Secretary of State Antony Blinken. Now, the series of meetings came a day after Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu abruptly canceled a high-level delegation visit to Washington this week. Netanyahu is reportedly furious over the most recent UN Security Council vote calling for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. In that vote, the United States abstained, deciding not to use its veto, and the resolution was passed. Israel says it cannot defeat Hamas without going into Rafah, where it says the group has 4 battalions composed of thousands of fighters. Netanyahu has vowed to press ahead with Israel's offensive, but the United States has repeatedly warned Israel against a ground invasion in Rafah. In fact, Washington continues to push for a more precise operation.